Welcome back to the FPL video and podcast. This will be the updated transfer tips for Game Week 4. We're in the middle of an international break still, but we are getting close to the Game Week 4 deadline. Keep your eyes peeled for more FPL content. There will be an updated wildcard, team selection, and of course, the predicted lineups if you want to see it on the channel, as well as the deadline stream on Saturday, 2 hours before the deadline. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, we're making big progress towards 30,000 subscribers, and right now, we're very close towards 27,000. So thank you very much for your support. You can also check out the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships, the Discord server, FPL League, Draft Hound, as well as Spotify. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. I recommended Joao Pedro in the original Transfer Tips podcast, and Danny Welbeck is just as good of an asset as the Brazilian, if not even better, for Game Week 4, as Joao Pedro was called up to the Brazil squad, and I think Danny Welbeck has the best chance of getting 90 minutes in Game Week 4 against Ipswich Town specifically. But beyond that, if you had to pick between him and Joao Pedro, I'd probably lean towards the Brazilian. I wouldn't even mind having both for the next 2 game weeks, but Brighton's fixtures get tougher after that, so I wouldn't recommend that sort of double up for the long term. But Danny Welbeck has better underlying stats than Joao Pedro, but only one big chance. His XG is 1.41 and 3 shots on target. But we're talking about a very small sample size, so it's difficult to judge underlying numbers too much. They can give us a insight into what's going to happen in the future, but things will change over the next few weeks and months, and Danny Welbeck will have decent underlying numbers for a 5.7 million striker. His ownership is 14.8%, but in terms of transfers in, as you saw in the graphic at the beginning of this video, Danny Welbeck is not as popular as Joao Pedro, and that might need to be changed or reassessed, because I think Danny Welbeck can match the Brazilian for the next couple of game weeks. 2 goals and 1 assist, 23 FPL points, a very good showing by Danny Welbeck so far, and only the 1 blank in Game Week 3 against Arsenal. If you're on the market for a 4-point family defender, I think Lewis Dunk is the best short-term option, and if you've got a Brentford option in this position, he can rotate very well with a Lewis Dunk, so even in the tougher fixtures like Chelsea away and Tottenham at home, you can bench the Brighton centre-back and go for the Brentford option instead. His ownership is 6.6%, no goals or assists so far this season, but 4 key passes is very impressive for a centre-half. 10 FPL points is also decent, and I would expect a clean sheet or 2 in the next 2 game weeks. And Lewis Dunk has scored 16 goals in his Premier League career, more than any other active player, and since the 2020-21 season, only Gabriel has scored more goals amongst defenders. So Lewis Dunk is a great option in this position, and at 4-point family or below, I can't think of anybody better at the moment. Cole Palmer is currently flagged in FPL with a knock, and he was withdrawn from the England squad just like Ollie Watkins and Phil Foden, but I think he'll play in Game Week 4, and I would have no concerns about his fitness whatsoever. If anything, I'd be buying Cole Palmer, and for those that have him, definitely hold on to him. Don't be selling him. I know there's going to be a temptation to go to Salah, and I've also got the same problem with the likes of Saka in my team, but with Cole Palmer, he's not someone you want to move on with the next 4 fixtures being as good as they are. There are back-to-back away games in the next 2 specifically, but then it's Brighton and Nottingham Forest in home matches in Game Week 6 and 7, and I think Palmer can do very well and rival the likes of Haaland and Salah as a captaincy option. That's 1 goal and 4 assists so far this season. He's the top playmaker of the division with 4 big chances created and 25 FPL points. So really only Haaland and Salah are outscoring him, and he's right up there amongst point scorers, and he'll be in this list at the very end of this season. The other underlying numbers are also decent. 1 big chance, 11 key passes. So Cole Palmer is definitely a buy no matter what. Don't be selling him and ignore the yellow flag. I think he'll be completely fine for Game Week 4. I've already covered Eze in a Transfer Tips video on podcast this season. I highlighted him as a hold against Chelsea away in Game Week 3. He ended up scoring and getting maximum bonus points, and the underlying stats from the first 2 game weeks were too good to ignore. He had 12 shots at the time, and it's now up to 15. He is a very good FPL asset at his price. He has gone down to 6.9 million in the last week or so, but a lot of people will now be looking to buy him in against Leicester at home in Game Week 4. Now, if you refer to the FPL FDR, the fixture difficulty rating, Man United, Everton and Liverpool look really tough on paper, but I actually don't think so. Everton have the worst defence in the league. They're currently synced in bottom of the division with 10 goals conceded, and Man United always concede chances, and their record against Crystal Palace is quite shaky in the last couple of seasons. So I think Eze actually has some decent fixtures from my perspective. He's got only 1 goal so far this season, but I'd expect him to rack up a few goal contributions over the next couple of game weeks. He is benchable in game week 7 against Liverpool, but I think Eze is the sort of player you'd always be uncomfortable benching because everything goes through him in that Crystal Palace team. He can score or assist very consistently, and I think he'll get plenty of bonus points this season. Just like Eze, I highlight Isak as a hold in Game Week 3 against Tottenham at home, and he scored a goal and got maximum bonus points to get 9 overall. And facing Wolves away next, a team that have kept no clean sheets so far this season and shipped in 6 goals back in Game Week 2 against Chelsea, I think that's a great fixture for the likes of Isak, and even Fulham and Everton away in the next 4 look very enticing. But there is that Game Week 6 game against Manchester City, and that looks very tough on paper for any player, even for the forwards, but I think Isak will get chances in that game, and he has scored against the Citizens already in his career. He's got 1 goal and 1 assist so far this season, with 7 shots inside the box, 2 big chances, and 16 FPL points. If I had to pick between holding him or Gordon, I'd definitely pick Isak, but I'll discuss my own situation in the team selection podcast because I may end up selling Isak instead of Gordon, despite the fact that my preference would be to sell the winger instead. But Isak is definitely a hold if possible. He's still 8.5 million at the moment, but his price will likely go down to 8.4 in the next couple of days. His ownership is 43.4%. It has gone down by around 10% since the last time I covered him, and that was several weeks ago at this point. But in my opinion, Isak is definitely a hold if you can help it. But if the only way you can buy a Salah or Haaland is by selling Isak, in that sort of circumstance, I'd probably accept the criteria for selling him. But unless you're doing something like that, I think Isak is definitely a hold at all costs. And let's also not forget, he's got a great record against Wolves with 2 goals in 2 Premier League appearances. Kai Havertz is currently in the top 20 most transferred out players at this point of the game week. His price is still 8.1 million and his ownership is 18% with 2 goals and 1 assist. A very solid start to the season. He even scored for Germany during the international break. He's got 4 big chances for Arsenal in the Premier League and 22 FPL points. So he's kind of keeping pace with Saka as the best Arsenal asset in the game. I understand why people are looking to sell Arsenal assets facing Tottenham and Man City away, but let's not forget Kai Havertz was man of the match in the North London derby back in April. He got a goal and an assist as well as a double-digit haul to make things even better. And you'd also want Arsenal players in place from game week 6 to 8 when they face Leicester and Southampton at home back-to-back, and that's followed up by Bournemouth away in game week 8. Then they've got another tough run between game weeks 9 to 11 facing Liverpool, Newcastle and Chelsea, but I think having 1 or 2 Arsenal players in the long term is definitely the best balance, and even over the next 2 game weeks, you'd want to have 1 gunner in your ranks, and Kai Havertz is up there amongst the very best. In terms of attackers, I think only Saka really pips him, and there is a difference in price between the two of around 2 million. So Havertz for me is definitely a hold, great underlying numbers, and in 2024, only the likes of Erling Haaland and Cole Palmer have outscored him in Fantasy Premier League. Diogo Jota is the 6th most transferred out player ahead of Game Week 4, and he faces Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth at home back-to-back, followed up by Wolves away, his former club. Now, you might not be aware of this, but Jota has an incredible record against Nottingham Forest with 3 goals in 2 Premier League appearances, and even across other competitions like the Championship and the FA Cup. That's 6 goals in 5 games, so don't sell Jota ahead of Game Week 4, especially when you have the likes of Diaz, who are going to play against Argentina in a couple of days' time, and there's also big travel distances. There's no guarantee that Diaz even starts. I know, based on the last 2 game weeks, the Colombian looks like a better FPL asset, but in Game Week 4, I think Jota will outscore Diaz, and he could even get his first double-digit haul of the season. Now that's 1 goal and 1 assist for the new campaign for Diogo Jota with 8 shots inside the box, some decent underlying numbers all round, and 17 FPL points. Don't sell Jota ahead of Game Week 4. I think eventually around Game Week 7 or 8, Jota could become a sell when Liverpool's fixtures turn for the worse, but at this point in time, don't sell Jota when he faces one of his favourite opponents in Nottingham Forest. I had Rico Lewis in Use Your Fantasy last season and he delivered very well for me, but there is no guarantee he's going to continue to start in the Premier League, especially when the Champions League comes into play after the international break. And how will Pep tackle this? Will he start Kyle Walker in the Champions League and Rico Lewis in the Premier League? Or will it be vice versa? That remains to be seen. So I think the best course of action is to hold Rico Lewis if you've got him already, but I wouldn't be looking to buy him in at this point. And the next 3 fixtures look quite tough. I think City could keep a clean sheet against Brentford, and who knows, maybe it will be another 0-0 draw against Arsenal, but I don't think that'll be the case this season, and I think they'll concede against Arsenal and Newcastle. That's the way it seems on paper, and Manchester City have this bad tendency to win a game very early on. They're 2 or 3-0 up, and they concede a late goal with no clean sheets for all these assets. But what Rico Lewis does have is attacking potential with 2 big chances, an expected goals figure of 0.75, which is incredible for a right back. He missed a big chance against Ipswich Town after all, and that's 14 FPL points for the season. So as good as Rico Lewis is as a player, his potential is immense. I wouldn't be looking to buy him in, and instead, I would classify him as a hold. Over the last few years, Kieran Trippier has been one of the best right backs in the country and a phenomenal signing for Newcastle, but he's not starting games right now for the Toon with only 32 minutes played, no goals or assists of course, and 1 FPL point. His ownership is still 7.4%. It is Wolves away next, and if he starts, Trippier has a good chance of hauling, but you've got the following fixtures against Fulham, City and Everton. I could see 1 clean sheet in one of those games like I mentioned earlier. I like those games, particularly in terms of the attackers like Isak and Gordon, but I wouldn't be recommending Trippier or any Newcastle defender, but the fact that he doesn't even play, he costs 5.8 million, he's just not worth keeping whatsoever, and I think Newcastle will keep 1 clean sheet from the next 4 game weeks. And with Trippier, he's a bonus points machine, he's on set pieces, the assist threat is always great, but when will he start games? We don't know this for sure, and as a result, I think Kieran Trippier is a very easy sell. Lewis Hall has only started 1 Premier League game so far this season, and that came in Game Week 1 against Southampton. He kept a clean sheet there, despite the fact that Newcastle went down to 10 men, and Fabian Schär has been suspended ever since. He will return in Game Week 4, but in his absence, it's been Lloyd Kelly at left back, and I think that's really hampered Lewis Hall's progress. So with Fabian Schär returning from that suspension in Game Week 4 against Wolves, we could see Lewis Hall being reintroduced into the starting 11, but Lloyd Kelly got an assist in Game Week 3 against Tottenham Hotspur, and there's no guarantee that Lewis Hall will start in either Game Week 4, 5, 6, or the following weeks to come. So I think Lewis Hall is a sell because you don't want that uncertainty in your backline. I know 4.5 million is still a cheap price point, but at a similar price, you can go for more nailed-on options like Konsa, Pau Torres, and there are so many I've covered on this channel throughout the summer. So Lewis Hall is a sell. He might start in Game Week 4, and I think Fabian Schär has a big part to play in Lewis Hall's minutes, but I still think that uncertainty isn't what you want in a defender. The 11th and final player I'm going to cover today is Amadou Onana, who's also the only skip. His price is 5.1 million, his ownership is 8.8%, with 2 goals in his opening 3 games. I mean, he's scoring at a very good rate. I've never seen this at Everton, and Aston Villa are really targeting Onana from set pieces. He has such a physical presence and he can score more goals this season. 2 shots on target though isn't a very sustainable stat because he's not going to keep up this 100% conversion rate when he gets it on target, but it has to be said, he is getting some big chances with 2 of them so far this season. His XG is also 1.16, and you can't judge football purely on stats. They give you a reference point, and also it can help you identify trends that you may see towards the end of the season. But I don't think Onana will be a great FPL asset for long. He might tick along nicely at 5.1 million and outscore Morgan Rogers for the next couple of game weeks, but I don't see this sticking in the long term. That's 20 FPL points so far. The next few fixtures look great. If you've got Amadou Onana, I would not be selling him, but he's not someone I'd be looking to target, and I'd rather go for Semenyo for just a little bit more. A 0.5 million difference between the two, I do admit, but Semenyo plays as a right winger, and he's getting goals or assists consistently, and we saw this from the beginning of last season for Bournemouth, whilst Onana will kind of be a set-piece merchant in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong about this. If you disagree, let me know down in the comment section below. He has more license to bomb forward than he did at Everton, where he played a more defensive role, but I think Amadou Onana is a skip. That wraps things up for today. I've covered another set of 11 players heading into Game Week 4, so across both of these videos and podcasts for the transfer tips, that's 22 players highlighted and analysed in detail. And some of these are very popular options and others are going to be under the radar picks, but I have to say I disagree with a lot of the players in the most transferred out section like Isak, Watkins, Saka, Gavardio, Diogo Jota and Palmer. All of them are holds in my opinion, even Gordon potentially, but I think he's more of a sellable asset than the others in the top 7 list that I just mentioned there. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, for this FPL and Youth Fantasy updates. Check the Discord server and be sure to join it. It's a great community to be a part of. And also join the FPL League. Check out Draft Town. A lot of you have been signing up using my link. It's a great resource I've been using for over a year. And also check out my Spotify. Leave a 5-star review if you enjoy my content. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. Keep your eyes peeled for more FPL videos and live streams, as well as UCL Fantasy. Both of my drafts have been uploaded already in that fantasy format. There'll probably be another draft, the team selection, and much more content over the next few weeks. I'll see you very soon for that, and I wish you all the best of luck in the new season.